Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Bitcoin, and we're going to be looking at its continued price descent over the last several days. If you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. So far, Bitcoin was unable to hold the 20-day moving average as support, as well as the 21-day EMA. And we've discussed before that this does not definitively mean that we're about to have a sizable correction. We've said that several times. So far, it remains to be true. You can see here we were able to hold it. We ultimately fell below, but we still did not fall back to, say, the 20-week moving average or the 21-week EMA, which is all the way down here. Okay, so we have not fallen to those levels yet. Now, if you're looking for a potential area of support in the event of a further decline in the valuation of Bitcoin, as we've discussed before, I would say keep your eyes on the 50-day moving average. This is where we finally found support over here before trending higher, and this currently ranges, or the current valuation at the 50-day is $41,149. It's moving up about $100 to $200 a day. You can see it actually is starting to level off some. But what's interesting is that its current valuation is closing in on the prior local top. Okay, so you can see that right here, we are closing in on our prior local top if we were to fall potentially to the 50-day moving average in the next few days. So if we say had a candle that just dumped like this down to 42K or 41K, this might bounce off of the 50-day moving average, which is where we again found support last time. Now you guys know that there's always the chance. We always have to discuss the chance of a 20-week moving average test, okay? And testing the 20-week in a bull market is certainly never fun, right? It's never fun, but it probably will happen at some point this year. And it could happen several times this year. And again, if we were to go back, let's switch this over to a weekly time frame so that we can fully identify where our bull market support band is. Let's hide these other moving averages. We have not tested it in quite some time. Okay, so no one, in my opinion, should be surprised if we did have a correction to the 20-week moving average, right? If we were to take, say, a measure or a time move from when we last tested it to the current day, we're looking at 140 days. So it has been a substantial amount of time since we last tested it. If you look at the last bull market, we tested it every 2 or 3 months. Okay, we did not leave it for very long. It was the last market cycle was the structure of the cycle was a lot more predictable, and that it just kept coming down to the 20-week moving average, holding support, confirming that, okay, we're still holding it, and then it would trend higher. But you can see time and time again, after 2 or 3 months, we would test it, with the longest duration between tests being the final one, which took us around 126 days. Currently, we're at 140 days. And as we've said before, the price of Bitcoin is more so emulating this cycle over here than the last one, because in the cycle before, we had a period where we went about, if we take it to this point right here, it was 147 days when we had a wick all the way back down. If you don't include that, we would be all the way over here at, say, 217 days, 210 days. But if you look at, say, this wick right here, it was about 147 days. We had nothing but green candles for months and months and months. We had a major red candle that measured from the peak to the bottom was an 80% drop. This was a pretty substantial drop. And, obviously there was definitely fundamental things going on at the time. We're not going to discuss that necessarily, but this was an incredible move by Bitcoin. We had a fairly sizable correction. We sort of fell below the 20-week moving average for a few weeks, but we ultimately picked ourselves up by our bootstraps and continued on. This cycle was not a systematic test of the 20-week moving average, which is somewhat resembling this cycle as well. We're not systematically testing it. We sort of tested it one time, and then we just blasted off, okay? We tested it one time, and then we essentially just blasted off and haven't looked back. Similar to the last cycle, or 2 cycles ago, right? We got above the 20-week, we came down, I guess we tested it here, and then we had one more test, and then we just blasted off before coming back down to it, a significant amount of time later. And if we don't include the wick, that sort of tested it on that single day, it took it about 224 days to sustainably test it, meaning like we're testing the 20-week moving average for several weeks in a row. That took 224 days. So in the present cycle, going from this point to the present day, it's 140 days. If we were to go, say, 224 days or something like that, that would put us potentially out in May. I have a feeling we're going to test it before May, but you really never know. And if we get an idea of where is the bull market support band, right now it ranges from $28,000 to $31,000. So even though that might seem like a scary drop, if we drop and hold that as support, we're still maintaining the integrity of the bull market. And that could represent a 40% drop from here, which is somewhat crazy to think about. And for new people to the space, that might be somewhat unbelievable, especially if they were buying up in this region. But remember, for the people buying over here, even a correction to 30K is not necessarily anything to get out of bed for in terms of the grand scheme of a market cycle. Okay? It just means it goes to show, there are going to be corrections along the way, and we've seen this many, many times. So we'll take it one step at a time. As I've said before, I think the 50-day moving average is where we should look first. Okay? We should look at the 50-day moving average before necessarily resigning ourselves to the fact that it will test the 20-week at some point. But the 50-day moving average, if Bitcoin's descent continues, we would be looking towards the 50-day to maybe provide some level of a bounce. The 20-day did not provide a bounce. We discussed it potentially providing a bounce. We sort of tried to bounce, but as we said, when it was happening, this is not really a decisive bounce like this one was, where it rallied up from the bottom. It rallied up 30% or something ridiculous, right? It barely rallied up 10, 12% or so. So it was not a significant bounce, and we've continued to go below. So now, I would say the next area to look in the event of a continued descent by Bitcoin is the 50-day moving average. Right now it's at 41,149, but it's moving up by $100 or $200 a day. And by the way, we're going to get a weekly close tomorrow, so that will be an interesting time, because then we'll see the bull market support band move higher. The 20-week moving average at that point could be flirting with around $30,000. As crazy as that is, to see the 20-week moving average will be at that time flirting with approximately 30,000 US dollars. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. We also have the premium list altcoin season sale. You can find a link to that in the description below to lock in the lower rate. You get access to the weekly reports and videos, the premium only live streams, the risk dashboard, the trading view indicators, the Telegram alerts channel, the Telegram chat room, and more. Make sure you guys check it out if you want to lock in the lower rate. So far, to wrap it up, it looks like our regression band has basically we got rejected right at our regression band. Ultimately, I do think that the price of Bitcoin will trend much higher than $58,000 this market cycle. However, I do believe that, as I've said many, many times, that this market cycle will be a long cycle, most likely, with institutions pouring in over years. It looks like we're just kind of regrouping for a little bit. We might test the 20-week moving average potentially before moving back into the regression band, or we could go back down for a while. But we'll take it one step at a time. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. We'll see you next time. Bye.